How you doing, Bob? Another podcast for Citizens for a Better Broome.
Hi, Andy. Good to be with you today. Thanks, folks, for listening. Citizens for a Better Broome weekly podcast. We record this every Tuesday afternoon. So today is the 24th, Andy. There'll be a little bit of lag time, but you can check us on Facebook, Citizens for a Better Broome, and bobkingsley.com will bring you most of the things we write about. What you got for us to start off today, Andy?
Got a few things that are of interest that looked at over the past week. One of them is the state education department is going to cancel the June Regents exam in U.S. history and government because it might contain some content that might increase the student trauma based on this recent violence in Buffalo. How far do we go for the sensibilities of people? And on top of that, Regents Department has decided that if you get 64 to 50 on your Regents exam, you're basically going to get a do-over opportunity from your school district if they allow you to have it. So the school district then give you a credit if you are able to pass the class. What's unclear in reading this now, is it a local diploma or is it still the Regents if you fail the Regents?
Well, what's clear is that you're not getting a good education in New York State, generally speaking, because of crap like this.
They just can't give it up. They've just got to create an outcome that they want. Like you say, they don't have a quality of education is suspect, as well as everybody's getting a certificate for participation.
Here's what they should have done, Andy. When the pandemic started and kids had time at home and really nowhere to go, here's what should have happened. Here's the history teacher. I'm the history teacher now. Okay, kids, here's the deal. Normally when we have class, we're crunched for time, and I know you have other things to do, so I assign you a reading assignment, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and we kind of get the gist of everything. You know what I mean? Wink, wink, nod, nod. Mm-hmm. But here's the deal, kids. You're going to be home and you got a lot of extra time. I want you to read the effing textbook from cover to cover. Cover to cover. Read the whole damn thing, all of it, because you got nothing but time on your hands. I want you to be smart. I want you to know about history. So read the whole effing book. Why wouldn't you do that? What are the kids going to do? They're sitting around playing with themselves.
And that's basically what's happened. My grandson, still struggling after being off for a year and a half. Now they're going to get it sorted out, but he's going to be okay. But at the end of the day, why subject yourself?
Well, he might be okay as a third grader or second grader, but what about a sixth grader, seventh grader, eighth grader, which are these important transitional years?
Yeah, exactly.
And, speaking of that, Andy, with this SV thing and the shooter from Conklin and all that, I went up there the other day to look at this for myself because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So a bunch of Solo cups shoved into a fence that says SV Heart Buffalo. What's that do? Assuage the conscience of everybody in the school district that maybe saw something and didn't do anything when this kid was going off the rails? I mean, what the hell? What is this Love Buffalo thing? There are 10 people that got killed.
Right.
Doesn't have really much to do with Buffalo, except that it happened in Buffalo. Okay. So what's this SV Heart Buffalo crap? Was that just some kind of virtue signaling BS? I mean, at least I get it with kids, they're not well formed yet. They don't get it, but their advisors could be saying, you know what, here's a better project. Why don't we talk to the school district and ask them, were there any problems with this kid before this? Do you have a record of any outbursts or other things that should have been alarming, should have sent letters home to parents? Did any of that happen? Let's really do something. If you want to do something, kids, meaningful, try to get to the bottom of this. And what happened? How did this guy become so unhinged in public and nobody said anything?
And the
That's
red
the
flag
question, as opposed to shoving Solo cups in a fence that says SV loves Buffalo. That's so trite. It makes me sick.
And how the failures of the system. We talked about this last week. Again, how is it that this young man ends up buying a rifle, having documented emotional issues,
being hospitalized for 20 hours for it, courtesy of the state police, and the same state police that you have to call to get a NICS check to test, to make sure that someone passes muster, and yet they say, "Oops," but no culpability on their part, right?
Exactly.
You know, that whole thing, Andy, is a joke. I mean, here in the local press too, what do? They show the address and a picture of the gun shop that sold this gun. The gun shop was totally legal in what they did. They followed every step. It's the government that effed this thing up, not the poor bastard trying to make a living in a little gun shop. Okay. So what do? They ostracize him by implication. What was the news purpose of showing this guy's address? The poor bastard had to shut his shop down for a week to let things cool down because some people are such freaking morons that they go after the shop for selling them the gun.
And you have to ask yourself, why are people so apathetic? Why are so many people tuned out about their governments and about their leaders? And that brings us up to another topic here. 35,000 plus complaints against nursing homes for the last 2 years. 16,000 of them that they're working on have been substantiated that they agree with the complaint, but no action. And then another 17 or plus are ongoing that the state hasn't gotten to. You know, I guess they're behind. And,
right,
and
right.
all of these
but
deaths.
Broome County wants to maintain and run a nursing home, right? Because they're on top of their game so much that that's an important private sector business that has been turned into a public business. So we can, as taxpayers, lose $7 or $8 million a year by their mismanagement.
Why is Broome County even in the nursing home business? Why are we in the golf business? Why are we in the airport business?
Right, when we can't even do basic governance, right?
Right, and we can't even signal a young man that commits 10 murders.
Well, here's one problem, Andy. According to the New York Citizens Audit, which is a grassroots group that looks at elections, they just put out something that said the Broome County voter rolls maintained by the New York State Board of Elections demonstrated that 3,263 people voted without a residence address in their voter roll. 3,263 voters, no residence.
Well, then that would definitely swing the vote. Maybe not so much on the national level, but locally, sure.
Well, listen to this. They're talking about a voting age population of Broome County and compared to registered voters. Let's see. The group that has 100% registration is 30-year-olds. 31-year-olds have 101% registration rate. 33-year-olds, 101%. 34-year-olds, 109%. 35-year-olds, 106%. And 75-year-olds, 105%. So what does that tell you?
Well, somebody's cooking the books.
It tells you that, people are leaving and not bothering to tell the voting officials at the elections board. But doesn't that make it ripe for fraud? I mean, if you can know this as a private citizen, you can start filling in the blanks here.
Right,
and of course,
exactly.
The 70-year-olds, of course, 104%. It means someone's not going through the obits and figuring out who died in Florida and didn't know. How much trust can you have in elections if you can't even at the local level figure out that over 3,000 people voted in this county alone without a residence address?
And the saying that and nobody's challenged it. Nobody's gone back through the in a close election, you would have to go through and contest each of those.
Well, not only that, Andy,
voters.
These are 3,263 people, not who just didn't have a resident address. They voted.
And they counted it.
So there's 3,600. Obviously, I mean, it may be just a simple mistake, but guess what? It still nullifies the vote. It's not valid. Don't have an address, right?
Right. And they allow it. Where's the outrage?
Well, you said before about apathy. Half the people are apathetic and half the people are just jacked up on their own lives or, trying to make ends meet and struggling with the day-to-day things that keep them from perhaps being as informed as they'd like to be. And then there's a percentage who just don't care. Then there's a lot of people that are in the wagon and there's a lot fewer people pulling the wagon. The wagon's slowing down.
Talking about wagons, the Democrats are circling their wagons. New alignment with the congressional districts, where the best one today is Nadler against Maloney, two old time New York City liberals, basically no difference between each of them as far as policy goes. And they've got to run against each other. And they're trying to force the woman out. Carol Maloney is her name.
Right.
And Nadler's trying to get her just to throw the towel in. Well, she said, no, I'm not. We're going to run and we're going to have the election. We'll see how it plays
Well, you know,
out.
anybody that takes a look, I mean, just Google Gerald Nadler and look for something recent. Here's a guy who's just a doddering idiot. I mean, he's a doddering idiot. He's an embarrassment.
Exactly. During the impeachment of Trump, both times, he's a tool. Well,
Definitely a tool.
Going forward is that now Hochul's outraged about this, even though she was the one that her and her people were the ones that had all the late night shenanigans screwing over upstate Republicans that now got their districts back, or so to speak anyway, because there still is a district that New York is going to lose. The mid-state and then downstate Democrats, and it's so up comes the primary dates, which they haven't set yet, but Hochul's going to have to set them here shortly.
Well, she's everything you need to know about Kathy Hochul. You should know from her championing $650 to $800 million giveaway to Buffalo, to the stadium, and that her husband's general counsel for the biggest distributor of beverages and things at that stadium. I mean,
exactly.
It's a joke. She's a joke. This is what happens in New York. Get somebody that's basically a living statue to stand in place for where an active politician as lieutenant governor should be. And then, oops, governor's getting arrested, or the governor has to quit because he's in a scandal or whatever, AKA Elliot Spitzer and Prince Cuomo. Right. And now all of a sudden you've got the person who was, basically a wallpaper now has to actually function as something. So of course, all their handlers come out of the woodwork and tell them what to do. And here's what you get for it.
Right. Exactly. And screwing over the Erie County residents with an $800 million bill for a new stadium, which by all accounts, the stadium that's there may not be the most newest or trendiest, but gosh,
right. And they've got such a following. If they played those games in an open field, they'd sell out because there's nothing else to do in Buffalo in the wintertime. And this woman's so brain dead. She manages to pick a lieutenant governor who gets arrested about a week later and indicted for all sorts of impropriety. And she knew he was being investigated, but she picked him anyway. I mean, what a moron.
Exactly. And what's that tell you again? It's just the caliber of our officials. Well, the last thing to go here for this episode is Letitia James has been listed at one of the 100 most influential people of the country, the top 100. I mean, her credit to her position is I hate Trump, and then it's I hate Trump, and I free killers, and no bail needed. Oh my God.
Well, this is the springboard for governorship. I mean, just, that's where Andrew came from, Cuomo.
Yeah, and Spitzer too, and Rudy Giuliani.
I mean, they might as well just become felons now, and admit to whatever evil they've done and get it over with, because it seems that it's a sure way to either resign in disgrace or go down in flames somehow. So. Yeah, gotcha. She's another one that's in the same cut from the same mold as the George Soros bought and paid for. Let's free everybody and have no bail.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know who wins in all that, Andy, but it sure isn't the people.
Well, it's not us, that's for sure.
Yeah, thanks.
Go ahead,
Andy. Folks, thanks for listening. Sorry to end on such harsh notes, but man, there's just nothing really good to talk about when you talk about politics in New York. We'll look for it next time. Maybe we can find it, but if not, we'll still be here next Tuesday. Thanks for listening. Facebook, Citizens for Better Broome, bobkingsley.com will get you the written material. Andy, thanks. And we'll talk to you folks next week.